What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today we're going to be bringing you a mock draft to the channel. And we haven't done a lot of these outside of the Underdog Fantasy platform, but today we thought, why the hell not? We're going to go on to Fantasy Pros, both of us attacking the draft, not seeing our draft order until it starts. And the rules of this specific mock draft are going to be a 12-team PPR draft between myself and Corey. Corey, how you doing today? Are you pumped?
I am doing good. This is a single quarterback draft as well. We're not doing a Superflex league. I know we talk Superflex and Dynasty. For some reason, we both play in like single quarterback redraft leagues. It's a really weird mix, but I kind of like having the two distinctions between the two different formats. But anyways, I'm doing good. If you guys enjoy this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe. Go check out our other videos if this is the first time you're seeing our content. We don't just do mock drafts on this channel. In fact, we do a lot of breakdowns of other things. Yesterday, I did an entire breakdown about target value for wide receivers, which I thought was a great topic to discuss. So go and check that out. And as always, guys, we have a contest running. You can pick my league punishment, being that I was the winner of my home league last year. Comment any of your league punishment ideas down below to get a guaranteed spot into our listener league, whichever punishment we end up choosing, and you'll win a free draft guide as well. So without further ado, guys, we're going to hit the intro and then we're going to get right into this.
So you guys can see we're about to start up this mock draft again. You guys already went over the rules. And if you're new to the channel, you haven't watched us before, make sure you hit that like button down below and hit that subscribe. We are on the road to 5,000 subscribers. As always, don't want to push it too hard, but hey, if you're enjoying the content, why not hit that subscribe button? But anyways, let's get this draft started and you guys will see our positions as soon as we do. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, so I am at the 10 slot and you are at the 8 slot. So maybe we see a little sniping action going on.
Right, yeah. Picking at the back of the draft is something that's really interesting to me because I actually know my draft position for the home league that we're running the contest with. And I pick at 9, and I'm trying to decide how I want to attack the draft, being that I've gone back and forth between who I'm targeting in that area. Of course, Cam Akers was a big target of mine now that he's no longer a part of my draft strategy, being that he went down with injury. And I'm at the 8 slot, and it looks like I got, the guy that I don't want to draft staring me in the face. And you guys can see who went basically before my pick. We saw the typical running backs off the board: Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. We all talked about them in the Who's the 102 video that we did last week. And we also see 2 wide receivers go pretty high as well, with Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins both going in the top 7 overall picks. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen in a lot of leagues, but maybe you're in leagues that don't value running backs too high. And I know Fantasy Pros has a feature actually where you can adjust how high certain positions are valued. But enough mumbo jumbo. I'm going with my RB6, and that's Jonathan Taylor. So I'm taking Jonathan Taylor over Ezekiel Elliott. That might be a surprise to some people, but that is the way I view Jonathan Taylor. I think a lot of his concerns are overblown. Every running back in this area of the draft has concerns, and people want to talk about Jonathan Taylor's inability to catch the ball, and Nyheim Hines going to eat into his workload, and Marlon Mack's coming back from injury. But all those concerns are overblown. I wrote him up in our draft guide, and I talked about the fact that Jonathan Taylor is an elite running back talent running behind an elite offensive line, and he's going to get all the goal line work. He's going to make big plays happen because that's the type of running back he is. I personally don't give a shit that he's not going to get that much pass catching work because he doesn't need it.
Yeah, no, I agree with Taylor. Again, I personally wouldn't have taken him over Zeke, but at the same time, you mentioned shooting for ceiling. Taylor has as high of a ceiling as anybody in this range. If you're going to take a first-round running back, I know our good friend over Ron Stewart on YouTube, if you guys haven't already checked him out, make sure you do so. Corey as well have talked about what makes a league-winning running back. And if you're going to take a first-round running back, they have to have a expected win rate ceiling of over 20%. And if Jonathan Taylor is at his ceiling, he can absolutely beat that league winner, specifically at where he's going. So I do like the pick there. I do think he's got the upside to validate a first-round selection. Now I'm going to be back on the clock here, and I'm at 110. And a guy that I currently have ranked as my 7th overall player falls to me. And actually, he's actually my 6th overall player. With the recent news of Aaron Rodgers expected to play with the Green Bay Packers this year, listen, Devontae Adams is that true league-winning wide receiver. We saw it last year. This guy was literally breaking records on a per-game basis. Had like 17 touchdowns in 13 and a half games. Absolutely ridiculous. And he is the one receiver that I can truly see here, outside of maybe the tier 1 and 2 running backs, that I can make a case for picking in the top half of the first round. And the fact that I can get him here at 10, I would absolutely take that. So I'm going to go with Davante Adams.
Right. And speaking about his teammate, Aaron Jones, who just got back to you with your next pick, and you could gladly just make a nice little Packers stack if you want to. Aaron Jones, to me, also moved up my board significantly with the news that we heard from Ian Rappaport today that Aaron Rodgers basically it sounds like he's mended some bridges with the Packers. He plans to return to camp. And of course, we saw that Last Dance meme that him and Davante Adams both put out on their Instagram accounts. And if any of you guys know the premise of the show, The Last Dance, or the documentary that they did, was the last dance, the last ride for Michael Jordan in a Chicago Bulls uniform. So maybe that's what the Packers and Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are thinking, that they're going to go give this one more shot, try and win a Super Bowl, and then move on after this year. I'm just kind of reading between the lines. But if that happens and they are Packers, then to me, Davante Adams is a top 5, top 6 overall pick in fantasy. And Aaron Jones is a top 6, 7, 8 running back in fantasy as well. And both are belonging to go in the first round.
Yeah, like if somebody were to tell me with the recent news of Aaron Rodgers that you can make the case for Davante Adams as soon as the 104, I mean, the clear top 3, in my opinion, regardless of half PPR, full PPR at this current juncture, would be McCaffrey, Cook, and Kamara. If you wanted to argue Adams at 4, I'm all ears, in all honesty. But anyways, I'm back on the clock here. I was hoping that Kelsey or maybe Tyreek would fall to me. Unfortunately, they're both gone. You mentioned I'm staring Aaron Jones in the face. Listen, I recently moved him up to my RB6, my 7th overall player. So I'll take him here. Like, I have no qualms about it whatsoever. And yeah, maybe I have a little too much exposure on the Green Bay. But again, if this is a last dance situation, if I'm shooting for upside, Aaron Jones has shown he has legitimate top 4, top 5 overall running back upside. Davante Adams has shown he could literally break the league at the wide receiver position. So I'm really happy with the ceiling of this start. Again, I'm playing for first place. I'm not playing for 4th or 5th. And if both these guys hit their ceiling, listen, we're talking about 2 of the most undeniable forces in fantasy football.
Right. And on the clock right now for me, I'm really starting to come around to the idea of going with one of these elite wide receivers around this range of the draft in the top 15, 16 overall picks, because I do think a lot of these running backs have question marks. As much as I think Joe Mixon and Najee Harris and some of these other running backs are going to get high workloads, I'm not necessarily certain that they're going to do a lot with them. So guys like Calvin Ridley and guys like Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill and Adams, as we already talked about, they're starting to become more and more attractive for me at the first round, at the tail end of the first round, if I have a turn pick, which I do obviously in my home league this year. So going running back, wide receiver, whatever the case is, I really don't blame people for doing it, because I think with these top end receivers, you just know exactly what you're getting. And we are doing a full PPR mock draft, so it does make a lot of sense to go with one of these guys here. All that being said, I'm taking Antonio Gibson because we already talked about the legendary upside. I think he is the last running back in this entire, real tier of running backs in this range of the draft that I think has that kind of upside. And I'm really excited to get these 2 exciting second-year running backs to anchor my running back core for my team.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Again, as much as I love Calvin Ridley there, with that start, you have 2 of the most premier young running backs in the league. We're talking about Antonio Gibson. If you guys haven't already checked out the draft guide, make sure you do so. I wrote him up as my league-winning running back. And when we're talking about guys that can enter like legitimate workhorse league-winning type of upside, can't look no further than DCMC, as I like to coin him. So I absolutely love that pick for you.
Yep. And I have a pretty obvious pick for me standing on the board right now. And to me, that's Terry McLaurin. I really like Terry McLaurin, especially in a full PPR league, which we are in right now. Yeah, you probably just got sniped on CeeDee Lamb. But Terry McLaurin to me and CeeDee Lamb, both of those guys, are in for very high target volume, especially given their ability to get open and create separation. Terry McLaurin specifically just reminds me so much of Calvin Ridley from last year, reminds me so much of Chris Godwin from 2 years ago in terms of the guy that's finally thrust into that year 3 breakout, head of his offense, target hog guy, and he gets a quarterback upgrade, pretty sizable one from what he's seen thus far in his career.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I would have wanted Terry or CD there. And the reason why I wouldn't right now say I would take Amari Cooper over either of them would be the foot issue. However, Amari Cooper should still deservedly be in that tier, especially in PPR formats. We're talking about a guy that was quite literally, I know that's not a sustainable pace, but was on pace for 204 targets in those first 5 games. And getting him here at the back end of the 3rd round as my wide receiver 2 is just an absolute phenomenal value. Hopefully that foot issue is fine. But again, we're shooting for upside in these first few rounds. And Amari Cooper, no other real player in this range, in my opinion, as much as I love Woods, as much as I love Godwin, as much as I love Julio, possesses the upside of Cooper in that Dallas offense.
Right. And the one thing I would like to address real quick, if anybody is wondering, maybe you guys are more casual players and you don't really know this, but we both have a running back and a wide receiver on our team that are on the same offense, right? You have Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. I have Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. If you guys are wondering, is that okay? Like, should I draft players from the same offense? As long as the offense is projected to be a good offense and you're getting guys that are going to, absorb a large, market share of the scoring opportunities, of the targets, and of the volume for their offense, I'm totally fine doing something like that. And I think with Aaron Jones and Adams, you're basically getting the whole Green Bay offense with those two guys. And then with Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson, I expect them to be a large majority of the scoring opportunities and the targets for the Washington offense as well, which, like I said, I think is going to be much improved.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. And I took a player from my own offense. As you guys know, I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. You guys can see that in the back. But Mike Evans falling to me here. I have to scoop him up. So I will select him as my wide receiver 3 in a PPR format. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, and I was definitely eyeing him with my next pick because
definitely considered it.
Like I said, I talked about the true value of targets in yesterday's video, and Mike Evans was heavily featured in that, obviously, given his ability to to command very high value targets for the Buccaneers offense. Another guy that wasn't necessarily featured in that video for a good reason, because he didn't get very high value targets last year. I think that's going to change this year in Cooper Kupp. With Matthew Stafford coming in with a full PPR format like we're in, we know that Stafford is very equipped to push the ball downfield in comparison to Jared Goff. And we've seen Cooper Kupp in the past be a featured red zone option for the Rams. And now with the injury to Cam Akers and maybe a quarterback that they trust to throw the ball a little bit more in the red zone, that might lend itself to more pass attempt volume down there, and that can only benefit Cooper Kupp.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. So you're actually going to be back on the clock here after your Cooper Kupp pick. We saw Deontay, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Josh Jacobs, Kyle Pitts, Travis Etienne, Kyler Murray, and that run of receivers leading up to your pick. So what are you eyeing here at that 508 slot?
I actually am looking right now. To me, there's like kind of a couple screaming values on the board right now. I'm really upset that Brandon Ayuk didn't fall to me, nor did Kenny Golladay, because I was really looking for those guys. But to me, Lamar Jackson is an absolute steal at this point in the draft. I am personally of the belief that Lamar Jackson should be going a lot closer to where he was being drafted last year, which was like the third, early third, mid third round range. Because with Lamar Jackson, you are legitimately getting 1,000-yard rushing quarterback. Like it's a stone cold lock that he's going to rush for that many yards. And in fantasy, he can have a very terrible passing output, which he did for the first 8-10 weeks of the season last year, and still be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So to get him in the 5th round when I'm choosing between guys like T. Higgins and a couple other wide receivers that have some question marks, while I like those guys, the security of a guy like Lamar Jackson is just too big to pass up in the 5th round. And I think he belongs to go in that 3rd, 4th round range where he was going last year.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Now I'm going to be back on the clock here at 5:10. The reason why I kind of grimace a little bit is I was looking at the Lamar Mark Andrews turn here just to kind of stack that up. But I'm looking at Darrell Henderson kind of as the screaming value at the running back position, simply because I don't really like the ambiguity of the position after him. And listen, he's not the player that Cam Akers is. I'm never going to say that, neither are you. But they have legitimately nobody in that backfield after Darrell Henderson. We're talking about Xavier Jones, Jake Funk, and really the only real threat to Darrell Henderson's workload would be somebody bringing in on the free agency market, which at this point, let's be honest here, fodder left on that is Todd Gurley and his disgruntled knee and a bunch of garbage. So at this point at the 5:10, just taking an upside shot on a running back that should get good amount of touches in a very good offense with the Los Angeles Rams, I just think that's a good value spot. So I will take Darrell Henderson.
I'm really surprised you didn't go with Dak there, because I
was hoping he fell back.
Of the elite quarterbacks or whatever you want to call them. And I'm really upset that Mark Andrews just went, because I wanted to stack him with Lamar Jackson. But I'm of the elite quarterback range, I think we both agree that Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, that's like that second tier of quarterbacks. We don't quite put Justin Herbert in that category yet. He's definitely right behind those guys, but we don't quite put him up there yet. So I would have really considered taking Dak Prescott. But like you said, Darrell Henderson, especially from a volume perspective, a situational perspective, it's pretty hard for him to fail. He'd have to be, not a very good running back to not produce in that situation.
And even if he's as a talent, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe even a lesser version of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde
If
Edwards-Helaire was
he's as
still an
good as
RB2.
Mike Davis, he'll be a top 15 running back.
Yeah, so I fully agree there. Now I'm going to be back on the clock with the wide receiver position. Nothing I really want to take here. I mean, I do like Claypool. I do like a couple of these guys, but I'm looking at tight end, and I just see Hawkinson as a clear tier break after the rest of these guys. So I'll lock him up here. Get TJ Hawkinson, especially in a PPR format, should absolutely absorb targets.
Yeah, and he was another guy that I was targeting with my next pick. So both of the tight ends that I was looking for and Chase Claypool, who I was also looking for, get picked right before me. So that is, just an immense amount of pain. I was really hoping at least one of those two tight ends or Claypool would fall back to me with my next pick. But a guy that I talked about again in the video that I did yesterday was DJ Chark. And I think with DJ Chark, you're getting a guy that gets the highest value targets. And we see Laviska Shenault go right after him in this draft in that offense. And we know what the stigma is around DJ Chark, right? He's inconsistent. He needs touchdowns. He needs big plays. But the quarterback upgrade he just got is seismic. Like, it is a massive, massive upgrade that he just got. And if Chark is getting those high value targets in that offense, the downfield, the red zone targets, then doesn't Trevor Lawrence help him more than any other receiver there?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Again, DJ Chark is going to be, you mentioned you tweeted this out, but similar to what T.Y. Hilton was with and without Andrew Luck, we could see that being the case for TJ Chark. Again, this is a guy that wins down the field, and Trevor Lawrence, let's be honest here, has the howitzer to be able to get him the ball. So I fully agree. You mentioned the video you made yesterday. Not all targets are created equal. Guess what? DJ Chark at 6 targets per game is going to be more valuable than Juju Smith-Schuster at 8. So I absolutely agree with the pick there.
Yep.
So yeah, you're back on the clock here.
Yeah, and there's a couple guys that I'm eyeing right now. I typically don't look for running backs in this point in the draft, but to me, Mike Davis is a pretty screaming value on the clock right now. He's more of a guy that you see go in the 5th, 6th round, given the volume that he's projected to see in Atlanta. That's not an offense that's going to be insanely run heavy, I would imagine, even with Arthur Smith coming in, just because their defense is still pretty bad. But I think at this point in the draft, with Mike Davis, you're getting really a secured ball carrier at minimum, and probably a guy that's going to be a featured part of the passing game and a potential 3-down back. And at this point in the draft, you usually don't see 3-down backs, especially guys that shown to be capable like Mike Davis did last year. So I'm going to go with Mike Davis here at this pick and really lock up. I believe he'd be my RB3 on my roster behind the 2 stud second-year players that I have.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And the 2 picks I would consider here would be Aaron Rodgers and Will Fuller. But seeing as on the turn, both these teams do have the quarterback position locked up, I'm going to take Will Fuller first, and hopefully none of these lunatics end up taking Aaron Rodgers as well. So yeah, we do see Robert Tonyan go with the 7-12. That is disgusting. But now back on the clock here, and as I mentioned, it is between 2 guys. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers again. Maybe a little bit too much exposure on the Green Bay offense, but if this is as cheap as I can get, in my opinion, a top 5, top 6 offense in the league at, like, I'm going to take it every time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You got, a monopoly really on the Packers offense. Anything that doesn't run through those 3 guys is probably going to be Robert Tonyan and maybe some of their tertiary pieces. But let's be honest, what is that, like 30-20% of the production of the Packers offense? Like, this offense runs through that triple threat of Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Jones. So yeah, I definitely like locking up, the best offense in the league last year, the 3 stack of playmakers that you got there. I'm looking on the clock right now. And again, I talked about not really taking a lot of mid-round running backs, but I really don't like the value at wide receiver right now. I think there's been a pretty seismic drop-off, especially after you took guys like Will Fuller and Curtis Samuel, who just went off the board. So I'm actually going to go with Trey Sermon here. I think Trey Sermon, we know that the San Francisco 49ers offense lends itself to high rushing production, but what we don't know is who's going to be the primary back there. I think Trey Sermon, of anybody in that offense, has the best chance to do that. And Damian Harris, I would have picked over Trey Sermon because I have him ranked higher, but I thought he would get back to me. Obviously, he just went off the board right after right before my next selection. So I'm going to move to the wide receiver position, get a little bit more depth there. And to me, Antonio Brown is an absolute screaming value at this point in the draft for a guy that is going to be maybe not the guy that you want in this offense. Obviously, Evans and Godwin, I expect to outproduce him, but he is definitely going to have a lot of games where he's in every fantasy writer start-sit column because they're playing a bad defense. And Antonio Brown has as high a ceiling as any. And then also you have the built-in upside that if anything does happen to Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, then he's going to see an even bigger role as a result of that too.
Absolutely. I just saw my next two picks just get sniped off the board with Antonio Brown and Michael Carter. So I'm going to pivot, and I'll take another piece of that Buccaneers offense. All reports, everything in training camp has pointed to the fact that Ronald Jones has looked like the superior back in the backfield. And we saw it last year when Ronald Jones was healthy, he was a much better back than Leonard Fournette was. So locking him up here, I do think you're getting exposure to a top 5 offense. You're getting exposure to a guy who should lead the team in rushing. And in general, Ronald Jones has legitimate 8 to 12 rushing touchdown upside this year. And if you're getting that in the 9th round, you could do a lot worse than that. So I will take Rojo ahead of Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. And thankfully, the guy that I was eyeing made it to me with my next pick.
It's my pick.
No,
again.
it's your pick. Never mind.
Don't worry. I know you're looking at Zach Moss. I'm not taking him. I'm going to go with Mike Williams, I believe. I mean, here at the 10th round, you could do a lot worse. Again, the wide receiver 2, and what should be a high-octane offense. And yeah, so you talked about targets that are valuable. Mike Williams gets some of the most valuable targets in the league. So 10th round, I think that's a very good pick for him.
Yeah, he actually ranked 2nd on that list of high-value targets because we know Mike Williams is capable of mossing anybody down the field.
Yeah.
Speaking of mossing anybody, Zach Moss just went off the board, who you're right, I was targeting with my next pick. So I'm going to go and pivot to the tight end position where I think there's a pretty decent tier break for me. I view Tyler Higbee in the same relative tier as guys like Noah Fant and guys like Dallas Goedert. And he's still available here for me at, I mean, what is he, like the 11th, 12th tight end off the board at this point in the draft? I think that's a screaming value. I think Tyler Higbee, now with Gerald Everett in Seattle, we can really see more, splits closer to what we saw with Tyler Higbee at the back end of 2019 when Gerald Everett was injured. And this was a guy that was legitimately like a league-winning tight end 2 years ago. And he has, a seismic quarterback upgrade, as I talked about with Kupp. So I really like getting Higbee as, a back end tight end 1 with the upside of being a top 5 tight end if he can get some touchdowns.
Yep, absolutely agree. So you're back on the clock here, and we do see a little bit of a running back run after your pick of Tyler Higbee. So where are you leaning here?
See, to me, I think the running backs have fallen off like pretty significantly. So I'm going to be looking to the wide receiver position, and probably everybody knows what direction I'm going with this pick. And to me, that is Shoddy B. I'm taking Rashad Bateman right here. I have Lamar Jackson, so I didn't intend on stacking him with Lamar Jackson. But at this point in the draft, I think Fantasy Pros is far too low on Rashad Bateman. On Underdog, we see Rashad Bateman go consistently in the 9th, 10th round. And I'm pretty sure I know exactly who you're going to pick with your next pick. But
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to go with both of them if they somehow made it back to me. I was going to go with Rashad Bateman. I was going to go with my next pick in Elijah Moore. I mean, listen here. 68th overall wide receiver, like you're actually smoking crack at that point. Fantasy Pros, like get a hold of yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, on Underdog Fantasy, which is a paid platform for sharp people doing paid leagues and big tournaments, we see these guys go much earlier than this. And that should tell you something about the ADP on the platform that you're using. So if you notice that you're doing Underdog drafts because you signed up using our promo code FSE, you can get both of our draft guides for free. Link is in the description. But if you're doing Underdog drafts and you notice that Jamar Chase, for example, is a 4th round pick on there, and you're in your home league draft and he's still on the board in the 7th round.
Yeah.
Like that should tell you something, that the sharp players are taking these guys earlier because they've realized the trend in the recent trend that rookie wide receivers are starting to produce earlier in their NFL careers. It's not a 2nd, 3rd year breakout situation anymore. And Rashad Bateman and Elijah Moore are young, talented receivers with opportunity in front of them. And that's really all you can ask for when you're drafting receivers at this point in the draft, because like McCole Hardman is a young receiver with opportunity in front of him, but we kind of know what he is at this point. With Elijah Moore, with Rashad Bateman, you're getting that unknown factor and that talent factor that you don't get out of some of these later round guys.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. And getting guys like this, I mean, we're talking about elite talents, guys who were both top 35 overall picks in this recent NFL draft, guys with opportunity to become the alphas in their team. And the 11th round, just typically you don't see. So, I mean, we're seeing it last year. I mean, everybody wanted to make all these Fugazi rumors about Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, all these other rookie wide receivers. The only one that really didn't work out, let's be honest here, was Jalen Reagor, but and a little bit of Henry Ruggs. But in general, like if you're spending that amount of low risk on a guy that can win your league versus the potential reward of, say, a Justin Jefferson breakout, even CeeDee Lamb, who was a top 24 wide receiver, even T. Higgins. Like, it's just incredible value. And in general, when you're in more casual leagues, typically speaking, like, people are just going to drive narratives. People are going to say, oh, well, rookie wide receivers need some time to adjust, yada, yada, yada. No, we've seen recently, if you're good enough as a rookie, guess what? You're going to get your target share. You're going to get your opportunity. And in general, I do think that both Rashad Bateman and Elijah Moore will fit under that category of talented enough to earn the role.
Yeah, but I totally agree.
I'm back on the clock here, and listen, this is a full PPR draft, and the running back position is outside of one guy is looking very bleak. I'm going to take James White. Listen, I think that Mac Jones ends up getting this starting nod sooner rather than later. And if that's the case, that can only help James White in terms of his target share. We're talking about a guy that with Tom Brady in recent past, talking about a less mobile type of quarterback, he was getting upwards of 80, 85. One season, I believe he had 120. I don't expect that. But if he's getting back into that range of 85, 90 targets, I mean, listen, 12th round is an absolute steal for this guy.
Yep. And I'm going to take a risk on a guy. Usually we're taking young guys at this point in the draft. This guy's, we kind of know what he is at this point, but you mentioned Mac Jones taking over the starting job sooner rather than later. I think if he does do that, then Nelson Aguilar is going to have a lot of value because I've already talked up Nelson Aguilar in the past. I actually did a player profiler, video for him in the Roto Underworld draft guide. And I talked up Nelson Aguilar as a guy that could potentially be the number one in this offense, right? They signed the two tight ends, but those guys are shorter type of targets in the offense. Nelson Aguilar is really the only guy that can stretch the deep part of the field, that can impact the intermediate areas of the field. And he actually ranked number one in the NFL in the stat that I created, true value of targets last year, because he got, for the Raiders offense last year, the high value targets, the downfield targets, and the red zone targets. And I think he's going to do basically the same thing that we saw from Brandon Cooks in 2017 for the Patriots this year.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I do think Nelson Aguilar is a very fine pick at that 12th round. And in general, the Patriots need a reliable receiver down the field. Nelson Aguilar is by far the best profile to fit into that role. So I like that pick. But where are you leaning here to your 13th selection?
Yeah, and speaking of Nelson Aguilar, I'm probably going to draft his basic replacement in terms of who's going to take over his role in the offense. And I was looking for Henry Ruggs. It looks like he's already been selected. So I am going to go with John Brown, the veteran wide receiver that they signed, presumably to replace what Nelson Aguilar was doing last year.
Yeah, that was good. That's about to be my pick. So very good pick there. Looking at the board here. This is very interesting at the wide receiver spot, but let's be honest here. We're talking about the wide receivers and Terrace Marshall here. I know he's completely buried like in the Tim Patrick, Josh Reynolds, MBS range, but listen, Curtis Samuel is vacating a good amount of touches in that offense. He's, I believe, the wide receiver 25 on points per game last year. If you're getting that type of upside with Terrace Marshall in the 13th round, I'm taking that any day of the week. So I'm going to go Terrace Marshall here. And, yeah, like, why is he going 2 picks around Chuba Hubbard right now? I couldn't
tell you, man. I think one thing I have noticed about this platform, and again, make sure you guys pay attention to what happens in ADP on the platform that you're going to be using for your fantasy leagues. But the one thing I've noticed on this platform is that at this point in the draft, like, why even take running backs? Like, there's no running backs worth a damn. So you might as well take shots on some of these rookie wide receivers. Take some of these shots on these later round wide receivers that take some of these later round quarterbacks over some of these running backs. Cause like, why are we seriously taking Phillip Lindsay at this point in the draft over guys like Nelson Aguilar, who could be the number one wide receiver in his offense?
Dude, don't sleep on Jeff Wilson, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to me, it's just a wasted pick to pick any running backs really at this point in the draft. So by the time the 10th, 11th, 12th round comes along, you should see a huge drop off in running back talent. And at that point, you're better off just taking wide receivers late.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And I'm looking here. I'm really between a couple guys. Like, I could look at any of these tight ends in reality, Jonnu Smith, Jared Cook, or I can just say, you know what? I can go with one of these quarterbacks, because any of these quarterbacks should all be off the board at this point. But the one that I'm going to eye here is the guy that we both have as our rookie quarterback one. That's going to be Trey Lance. Again, I have the floor, if you will, of Aaron Rodgers. If he's on the field, he's going to be a top 5 or 6 quarterback, mixed in with the ceiling of Trey Lance. If he gets that starting job, he has that rushing upside. Like, I think that's a steal at the 14th round. I mean, this is a guy, again, on Underdog, you typically see go in the 10th, 11th round area. So getting him at, in my opinion, a 3-round discount and around the Todd Gurley range is insane.
And we're talking about a guy that is legitimately ranked in Fantasy Pros 25th.
That's
quarterback. He's my quarterback 15. Like, I have him way higher than that, because they're seriously just not factoring in the fact that once this guy does get on the field, whether it's week 4, week 5, this guy legitimately has 1,000 rushing yard potential, like Lamar Jackson, like Jalen Hurts, like Kyler Murray. And you can't get that in the early round, like in the late rounds often. And I'm going to take advantage of both Justin Fields and Trey Lance, who both have that rushing ceiling. And honestly, even Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson too, late in drafts. And you mentioned Jonnu Smith with your last pick. It's exactly who I'm picking here. I already have a pretty solid tight end in Tyler Higbee. So give me the upside swing of a guy like Jonnu Smith, who, like I said, with Nelson Aguilar, could be a big part of this passing game once Mac Jones takes over.
And if Jared Cook wasn't on the board, I would have just taken Jonnu Smith because I would have seen a crapshoot. But for me, I do have Jared Cook in that top 15 area as well. I do think there's a significant role to be had on that team. So that's why I lean the quarterback first, because let's be honest here, if I didn't go Trey Lance there's no shot you weren't going to take him. So, you're back on the clock here, and I think there's a pretty clear person at the top there, but who are you leaning?
I have no idea how Trevor Lawrence is on the board. Like, how on earth is Trevor Lawrence on the board right now? Like, this is actually laughable how he's that low in the ranking stupid. And the ADP. Like, you talk about a guy that is legitimately a 9th, 10th, 11th round pick at worst on underdog drafts. Trevor Lawrence should not be going in the range of Mark Ingram and Devontae Booker. Like, are we serious right now? Like, Trevor Lawrence is going to legitimately step onto the field day one. We know he's the starter, and provide that Konami code quarterback formula that we're looking for. He can run the ball. He has a huge arm. He has weapons to throw to. And I actually have one of his weapons on my team. I didn't even intend to stack him with DJ Chark, but I got him both on my team. And I don't really need Trevor Lawrence because I have Lamar Jackson. But at this point in the draft, we have 7 bench spots in this mock draft that we're doing. So if Trevor Lawrence comes out and he's playing like Justin Herbert did as a rookie, I can trade Trevor Lawrence, or I can trade Lamar Jackson, or whatever the case is, because I think he's going criminally undervalued if he's going to go this point in the draft.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, as much as I love Deshaun Watson, you're taking a player that might not even play like at minimum 75% of the season, possibly the whole season, over Trevor Lawrence. Like, no. Matt Ryan, like, are we serious here? Are we actually serious that Trevor Lawrence is going 4 rounds after Devin Singletary? Like, no thanks. But that being said, I'm going to go to my pick. I mentioned Jared Cook earlier. I do think he's got a legitimate chance to be like the tight end 8 on the season that nobody's talking about. Again, huge target role left by Hunter Henry. I don't expect it to be the same role in the offense, but we're still talking about 93 targets in 14 games. And Jared Cook was legitimately the tight end 16 on points per game last year on 60 targets. So realistically, even if he supplemented, let's say over the course of a 17-game season, 85 targets, like, we're talking about a guy that should be a near lock given his efficiency output to finish as a top 10 to 12 option at the position. And at that point in the 15th round, you can't get much better than that. So I will take Cook.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is why we always talk, and we got C pluses, both of us.
Yeah, it's Fugas.
So, again, don't listen to what Fantasy Pros has to say. And this is nothing against Fantasy Pros, but in my opinion, their ADP is complete trash. And we use Underdog ADP in all of our analysis because it's paid leagues, it's sharp leagues, it's not casual players. And the best way to prepare for your draft is to prepare for the worst case scenario. And that is playing against sharp players. That is the worst case scenario, because if you go into your home league and the players that you're playing with are not sharp players and you're used to playing with sharp players, you're going to realize that you're getting values at every single one of your picks. And that's the best position to be in, because if you prepare for your draft with the intention that you're playing against casuals and your league mates are sharper than that, then you're going to be scrambled on draft day and frazzled. Yep,
absolutely. So I'm surprised I didn't get a higher grade. I mean, I heard Kyle Yates is a really big fan of Darrell Henderson.
He is. Yeah, he is.
But if you guys don't get the joke, he took a victory lap after Cam Akers got hurt. But anyways, if you guys made it this far in the video, I can give you the actual projected standings here if you like that little view. And me and Bush projected back-to-back at 8 and 9. So which is very nice. But
so I'll just read over my starting lineup real quick. I think you can. Are you able to click onto my team so that they can see it?
I can do team rosters. Yeah.
Yeah. So my starting lineup is Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Mike Davis, DJ Chark. Apparently that's worth a C+. But my bench, I got Antonio Brown, Trey Sermon, Johnny Smith, Trevor Lawrence, Nelson Aguilar, John Brown, and Rashad Bateman. So I think when you look at my team, I really like what I have. I have a mix of ceiling and floor. I have a lot of guys that are going to produce for me right away, like Terry McLaurin and Cooper Kupp. And then I have upside swings like Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar and John Brown and Antonio Brown on my bench, especially at wide receiver. And then, I know some people aren't really willing to take an extra tight end and an extra quarterback, especially when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, like I have. But at that point in the draft, Trevor Lawrence to me was just a screaming value. So it's worth holding on to him for a couple weeks and seeing if I have somebody that I could potentially trade, or maybe Lamar Jackson gets out to a difficult start and he turns into like a streaming option more so than an every week starter. And I have a guy that I can plug in when I need to.
Yep, for sure. I absolutely love how you construct your team, mixing the youth, mixing the upside with stability, as you mentioned. Similar construction to my team as well. I mean, got Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, all 3 Packers on the team. Mixed in, you got Darrell Henderson at RB2, Amari Cooper at wide receiver 2, Hawkinson, Evans, Fuller as rounding out my starting lineup. On the bench, Ronald Jones, Mike Williams, James White, Elijah Moore, Jared Cook, Trey Lance, and Terrace Marshall. So with that being said, those are both fair teams. Comment down below which team you prefer in the comment section. We kind of like gauging that. And as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you hit the subscribe button on that road to 5,000 subscribers, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Corey, anything you want to add before we edit here?
Nope. If you guys want to get more mock drafting practice in, you can do so on Underdog Fantasy. Like I said, you can deposit a minimum of $10 using our promo code FSE. You will get a $25 bonus on top of that $10. So you have $35 total to play with on the site. And you'll also get both of our draft guides for free for using our promo code. So there's not many deals out there much better than that. And again, comment any of your league punishment ideas down below to win a free draft guide and a guaranteed listener league spot into our league. Peace out, guys, and enjoy your Tuesday.